So my name is Sarah Pineda. I am a journalism major with a cross-cultural media emphasis, and today I will be presenting on how fake news is impacting international journalism. No se puede creer todo lo que se dicen afuera. This roughly translates into, you can't believe anything that's out there. I was sitting in my grandma's living room, just on her couch, just scrolling through the TV when I landed on the news. This is what my grandma said, referring to the random news channel that I had stumbled across. From someone who immigrated from Guatemala, a developing country, to the United States, she no longer finds credibility in reading an American newspaper or watching the news. She has been infected by fake news. Because of the rising idea of true journalism in our country no longer exists, this is what she believes. Now, there is no set in stone definition to what fake news is. It can be defined as false stories that appear to be news, deliberate misinformation, fabricated political stories to make an individual look bad, or maybe the top definition in Urban Dictionary, which says in all caps and is normally used in all caps and is Mr. Trump's favorite form of news. But the most popular definition of fake news is that it is a yellow journalism or propaganda. Now, fake news has existed for years, but it has been growing exponentially now because of the internet and its main source of fake news. With the internet's ability to share something widespread of people by a click of a button makes it possible for fake news to reach millions. According to a study conducted by the Pew Research Center, it found that 2/3, or 67% of Americans, report that they get at least some of their news on social media. Facebook being the most popular platform and also the most popular for fake news. For example, these are the top 5 fake political news stories from 2016 that come from Facebook. They read, Obama signs executive order banning the Pledge of Allegiance in schools nationwide. Pope Francis shocks world, endorses Donald Trump for president. Trump offering free one-way tickets to Africa and Mexico for those who want to leave America. FBI agent suspected in Hillary email leaks found dead in apparent murder-suicide. And Rage Against the Machine to reunite and release anti-Donald Trump album. Now, all 5 of these stories have generated over 5 million Facebook reacts, shares, and comments. 3 of the 5 stories have similar sounding names to actual news outlets, like abcnews.com but .co, tmzhiphop.com, and Denver Guardian sounding like The Guardian. Now, this can easily be mistaken for actual outlets, but readers who are international are more vulnerable to fall for this. And how are they getting their news from American outlets? Through the internet. In this next graphic, you can see that all the countries highlighted in the dark blue show how much of the world is actually connected on Facebook. So what is the difference between American journalism and international journalism? In the United States, we have a free press. This means that our books and media are not controlled or restricted by government censorship in political or ideological matters. In many other countries, they have a partly free or no free press at all. Countries like China, Syria, Venezuela, and Mexico, and many more. In this graphic from Freedom House, we can see that all the countries with no free press is in the purple and how it heavily outweighs all the countries with the free press in the green. Their government is monitoring the news they put out, and if they speak poorly about an individual or somebody in power, they are quick to bring it down. This leads to propaganda, which is the spreading of misinformation to the masses to promote an idea or point of view. Since readers from other countries are misled by their propaganda media, they must rely on American journalism as their source of news. Now, journalism is rooted in trust. This is the common bond in which brings readers and news publications together. However, with the rise of fake news in circulation across the internet, it begins to create cracks in the foundation of trust. And rants towards credible publications accusing them of being fake news only dissipates this relationship even more. And this relationship doesn't only involve us here, us Americans, but it also involves people internationally as well. Fake news comes from a lack of trust. International readers are now asking, can I trust this journalist? Can I trust this publication? Can I trust what this story says? In order to build this trust again, there needs to be a reconstructing of journalism. During my freshman year, I took a class called The Foundations of Journalism, and in this class, we read a book called The Elements of Journalism. In the book, the authors dedicate a whole chapter to what a journalistic truth looks like. A quote from the book says, "Truth requires commitment, a dedication to a process of verification, and that search is made more powerful when journalists and the public are knit together in a way that mixes the structure of traditional journalism techniques and authority with the power of the networked community." So what are we doing about this problem? Because fake news circulates like wildfire on the internet, publications have to work even harder to prove they are not fake news. Being as transparent as possible is one way. Letting them know exactly who the sources are, where they come from, and fact-checking everything. When I was an editor for an internship I had with an online publication, I was editing a story when I noticed that a writer had added a quote with no attribution. So at our meeting, I went up to her and I asked her, "Where did you get this quote from?" And she said, "I don't remember." In an attempt to end fake news, as journalists, we need to show we can be trusted by providing all the information in the story. And when we don't have that information, we have to make the decision if we either want to add it in or not. Eliminate any anonymous sources and hyperlink everything. By being detailed with how we deliver news to the public will help build the trust back. Our idea of truthfulness and authenticity in the media can be seen by God as He is a great example of trust. Oftentimes we think about us trusting God, but fail to see how God has trusted us and continues to build this trust with us so that we can have a solid relationship with Him. I've learned how the miracles performed in the New Testament is God building trust in us. Therefore, journalists need to prove with action, like God did, how readers can trust us. Dwayne Elmer, a professor at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School and author of the book Cross-Cultural Servanthood, says building trust requires risk. Publications need to take the risk to reconfigure how they do news to prove they are not fake news. As a cross-cultural media emphasis, I had to take a lot of intercultural study classes. I took on Arabic as a language to learn and have had international and cross-cultural journalism classes. I have learned through all the different courses at Biola how to build a relationship cross-culturally and how this can be applied to journalism. There are certain key elements in which create a relationship with someone of a different culture. This includes trust, understanding, learning, serving, and most importantly, listening. My ICS classes have provided me with the steps on how to engage with someone by not only learning about how their culture works, but understanding how mine works. It is well known that in America, we are in an individualistic society where we take pride in the work we produce. We may think, how dare someone question our work? It's perfect. But we fail to listen to others. Listening is part of what journalism is. Listening to the cultures and hearing their stories they want to share is crucial. CNN recently put out a campaign called Facts First in an effort to prove they are not fake news. While intentions of creating this campaign is to help the news outlet to show people the difference between their news and fake news, CNN is doing a lot of talking. CNN International reaches 354 million households, just showing you how big their audience is in countries all around the world. But this campaign for the CNN audience should not be only about saying they are fake news, but putting it into action by beginning to hear the request of their readers on what would help them be trusted again. Then this will help CNN represent American journalism well. I decided to major in journalism for the reason of telling other people's stories. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley in a small city called West Covina, once titled the third most boring city in California. Yeah. I live only 30 minutes away from downtown Los Angeles, where there is a story literally on every corner being told, the complete opposite from my hometown. However, as small as West Covina is, there is always news to be reported on. There were stories about the people, businesses, the government, and what life looks like in this city hidden by the mountains, but nobody paid attention to it. I want to report for all the other West Covinas out there in the world, to tell the stories of individuals who live in a city or country that has been ignored and make their voice louder. Fake news affects my aspirations to report internationally, as sources will not trust me as a journalist. In Italy, schools are now conducting an educational experiment by teaching their students how to differentiate between real news and fake news. The skepticism of international readers makes it harder for a journalist to do their job. There's also the barrier of language. If I travel, for example, to another country where I don't speak the language, I would obviously have to hire an interpreter. However, this interpreter might already have their preconceived notions of the fake news in America and hesitate to work with me. Working with an interpreter is also tricky because since readers are already questioning journalists' integrity in their stories due to fake news, interpreters might offer their own biased help, in which highlights their own angle of the story. When approaching fake news internationally, I believe the pressure of being called fake news shows journalists they need to work even harder. In my religion culture media class, before we were to write our feature story about a family from a different culture, we had to do a lot of diligent work. So this consisted of us going out, finding background people that shared the same culture as the family we were to interview, and also find articles as well that would help us get a better understanding of the culture. This showed me how to conduct a thorough research so that as a journalist, I knew the questions to ask, I knew what to look for, and I knew how to make my story strong. When the time comes when I transition into my post-grad life, I am confident I have been equipped in the right practices to do good journalism and show others why they trust me. Building the right, unbiased, and reliable connections with agencies, interpreters, and sources for stories might be tedious at first, but will eventually lead to the victory of overcoming fake news. Fake news does not only affect us here in America, but it also affects everybody across the globe. When a journalist can overcome the stigma of fake news, effective cross-cultural storytelling will prevail. This concludes my presentation. Thank you guys for listening. I'll be happy to answer any questions now.